All right. Good morning, everybody. I hope that you're having an extraordinary morning. I hope that you'll take some time to write out a few things that we're grateful. I'm just seeing Judy Forden throwing something up there on gratitudes. I sure hope that you'll continue this morning of doing two things with our time together. Number one is that you'll write down some things that you're grateful for. And number two, what I hope with my message for you today, that you'll take with some of your takeaways, some of the nuggets that you're going to have. So, look, as we know, as we move through these holiday seasons, and there's so many different holidays during this time frame, from, of course, numerous different cultures and numerous different religions. And my point is this: is that I hope that we are showing tremendous respect, love, and kindness to all people, and no matter their race, their creed, their religion, their thoughts, their beliefs, and that no matter where they're coming from, no matter where you're coming from, that not only will you experience the love that this world has, but number two, that you'll experience you'll be the one to give people a tremendous experience of love and kindness and acceptance. So with that, I had the opportunity to be with my father who raised me, and I always have to distinguish this now because I've expanded. I think some of you know I've expanded my family tree. In fact, behind me on my dry erase board, I actually wrote out just a few days ago, as we're in the process of writing a book. I started writing the clarity of all the different family parts of my tree, and so the person I was sitting at dinner last night, and I had the opportunity to hear my father talk a little bit about my youth. And sometimes you wonder some stories that you tell or ways in which you remember things as to whether or not they really happened or not. And some of you have heard this story, and I want to just tell you two stories because I think they're very relative, not only to my endeavors in life, my personality, and what drives me, but they're also stories that have always put a smile on my face. And if you've heard them before, I hope that you can bear with me. And if you haven't heard them before, because I believe there's a lot that haven't, especially as we continue to bring great agents into the organization and into the company, I hope that this will be a reminder of what's possible. So as I was sitting at our dining room table last night, I was speaking with my father, and I said, "Hey, do you remember when I used to when I tried to, or I did and I attempted and successfully did so, jumped off the deck and in our home out in Sandy or Granite, some of you know where that is, the mouth of Little Cottonwood Canyon." And he says, "Oh, of course I do." And he actually went on to describe it in quite detail. In fact, so let me tell you the story. But he went on to say that he was at work and came racing home because my mother, was raising me, was of such crazy emotion because I had just jumped off the deck. And so, as the story goes, there was one time where I tried to jump off about a two-story deck. And I often have gone back to that home, and I'll sit there in the street and observe it and remember those days as a child, as a young man and a young boy. And I remember one day I climbed over the deck and I was about to jump off this two-story deck. And I was smart enough that on the concrete below, I had put a little 1 foot little wading pool, the kind that you buy at the Walmarts, and the kids are splashing and they have about a foot of water in them. And I had filled this little swimming pool below me and put it on the concrete. And then I was there and I had crawled over the railing and I was about to jump. And I still remember my mom shrieking in terror as she saw me, that I had, at 4 or 5 years old, probably not 5, I think more so 4, that I had climbed over the railing and I was hanging on to it and just about to jump off. Of course, she was able to grab me and tell me those words: "You can't do that, because if you do, you're going to die. It's going to kill you. You're going to die. What are you thinking? What on earth how could you think of doing such a thing?" Now, again, I always say that the things that we remember in life are often those things that we have tremendous amount of emotion around. So as the story goes, of course, some of you know, is that, I don't know, maybe it was a day later, maybe it was a week later, who knows, but it was shortly thereafter that I then got the courage up again, even though in my defiance of her telling me what I can't do. And I don't know if you have anybody in your life that says what you can't do and what you can't accomplish. And the hopeful thing is that it's not you. Because the great learning here is that there are so many people that will be out there to tell you what you cannot do, what is not possible for you. Now, of course, all of these people in most cases are incredibly, they're looking out for you. They have the best of intentions as to believing what they believe is possible for you and what you can or cannot do. Now, some of that is obviously just basic protection of your livelihood, your life, but in some of it is really about your business, your life, your future, what's possible economically for you. Think about those moments in your life where you took a step back and you said to yourself, well, I can't do that. And what is the pattern of your thinking? Think about that for a moment. What is the pattern of your thinking? How do you think? Is the moment that something happens for you, is your knee-jerk reaction, oh, I can't? I've always been amazed by people that I've watched. I'll say things like, hey, do you want to go do this in a year or two? And the first words out of their mouth are, oh, I can't. No, I can't. Well, but it's in a year from now. Don't you think you could save the money? Don't you think you could sell a home? Don't you think we could go do this? No, I can't. I can't. Nope, I can't. And I think there's some patterns that we each get into in our lives where we first take a knee-jerk reaction to either I can't, or the other side is I will find a way. Now think about that for a moment. How do you approach this business? Is your approach to what you can't do and you focus on the I can'ts and I'll nevers and I don't think I'll figure it out, and people telling you how much you can do or how much money you can earn or how many deals you can close or what your health can be like, what you can eat, where you can go and what you can see and who you can spend your time with. Think of all the things. The media is doing it. The people who love you are telling you what you can or can't do. So look, there's that great book called Think and Grow Rich. Think about that for a moment. Think and grow rich. Think about it. In the beginning of the book, Napoleon Hill begins to speak to this idea that somewhere in this book, you're going to figure out what this book is all about. Some of you will figure it out early on. Some of you will take you almost the entire book to read, but eventually you're going to figure it out. And his point is this. Those of you who haven't read it, I apologize. I'm giving you the answer to the test. It is simply this: think. Now, I'm not here to say that I was of deep thought and understanding at 4 years old, but as I stood and hung over a railing, looking down at a little swimming pool, I still remember the day and I remember the moment. In fact, I can see the canyon right now in my office that I was sitting in or standing in and about to jump off and being told that this would be the cause of my death. Well, look, you know what? You know the story. If you don't, I jumped. And I still, this day, I still remember jumping off that thing and landing. And I can so clearly remember as a young boy landing and the thud of my knees. And sometimes I think to myself, as I was even walking down the stairs this morning, I'm like, oh gosh, my knees hurt. I was thinking, I wonder if that seriously is the reason I have had so many knee issues. But I remember raising my hand and saying, yes, yes, I did not die. As I ran around the side of the house and flung open the front door and I screamed to my mother and said, guess what? Guess what? I didn't die. I can remember it like it was yesterday. And I can remember her in absolute devastation of, oh my goodness, here's this young boy that I love, my child, and he has jumped off a 2-story deck onto the concrete, and he is excited and happy about it, screaming, he did not die, he did not die. Well, I have to tell you, she called my dad, and I still remember being put into my room. And last night, as my dad was sharing the story, he's like, I basically drove home as fast as I could, and he basically, man, he had me. He gave it to me, if you would say. It was one of those moments, if you have children where you love them so much, you kind of want to just like, beat them up just a little bit. You want to take them down because you love them so much. But the reality is that it taught me a great lesson at 4 years old. And here's the lesson. And maybe there's other lessons you're learning from this, gang, but this is the simple lesson. Stop believing even yourself and others, the limitations of what you can't do. So here we are on the cusp of 2021. What is it that you're going to do? What are you telling yourself? What is possible? What are you sharing within yourself in regards to what could you do? If you put on the blinders and you ignored all of the naysayers, all the people who have told you what you cannot do, what you cannot accomplish, what you cannot achieve, what you cannot win at, what would life look like? If you put on the blinders and you ignored all the people who said it cannot be done, what could you achieve? Look, for a long time, I have had so many people tell me what cannot be done as we have built Everest. I could still remember in its infancy when I would get phone calls from other brokers and owners who would say to me, George, what are you doing? You're getting into the business of being a broker and an owner, and I'm here and the market's crashing and I'm trying to get out of it and you're going into it. Don't you know you're going to fail? Don't you know you're not going to make it? What are you going to do if the market changes? What are you going to do if the rates change? What are you going to do? The market's going to change. It's not going to be as white hot. And yet I still meet agents that aren't making money. I visit with them and their struggles and they're having challenges. And how I think to myself, how is that possible? Well, it's always possible when you don't talk to people consistently. It's always possible when you don't prospect consistently. That is what will happen. You will not earn money in the game of real estate. So go back to what I said. What is it that you told yourself you can't do? But you know deep down that if you suspended all of your disbelief, if you set it aside and you said to yourself, what if I stop believing all the naysayers? And if you're one of them to your own self, what if you stop believing yourself in what you can't do? And what if you stepped forward and said, you know what? It's possible. It's possible. And what if you just work from a place of what's possible for me if I did certain things? And that's what I want to get into a little bit deeper today. What if specifically you did certain activities? What if you prospected every day? What if you made enough contacts every day? What if you did your job, you did the activities that you know are necessary, and you just suspended? That's one of the things, terms I have often used in my life. I'm going to suspend my disbelief because everything about this says I just might fail, or I don't know if it's going to work out, or I don't know if I can make it happen, but I'm going to suspend my disbelief for a moment. And I'm just going to move forward. It's often been said, when you don't know what direction to go, you go forward. How many of you don't know what direction to go? How many of you are wondering what is the right direction? If you don't know it right now, that's okay. There's been many times in my life when I haven't known what direction should I go. But what I chose was to go forward. And what I will always choose is to go forward. Look, there's not one of us that isn't immune to discouragement. There are moments of frustration. There are temporary setbacks. There are defeats. There are challenges. There are moments of frustration. There are all of those moments that life will serve up to us. But the question still remains, despite all the reasons, can you still persevere? And the answer is you can, if you will do certain things that will win the game of selling real estate. You can win the game. That is a fact. There is no question about it. And here's the problem with that, is there's many people that will give you permission. They will buy into all the reasons why you can't do something. They'll buy into that it's the broker's problem, it's your manager's problem, it's the market's problem, it's the society's problem, it's the political problems, it's the inventory problems. It's the mortgage rates that are the problem. It's what other agents are doing that are the problem. It's where I'm, it's my office. It's my office is the problem. I don't have enough sunlight. I have an interior office. I have an exterior office. These are all the problems. Are they? Are they really the problem? Because once we come to the conclusion that ultimately, if we could suspend our disbeliefs, in most cases, we find out really quickly that we are the problem. And I have found in my life that if you will work, the system will work. So how hard are you going to work this year? How hard are you going to work to finish out this year? How assertive are you going to be? What are you going to buy into? What are you going to believe? What are you going to do to operate, to build, to create a life, a business, a career, a future economically? What will you do today? What are you going to buy into? Are you going to buy into all the people and maybe even your own voice in your head that says what you can't do? Or are you going to choose to do something completely different? I hope that you will do something completely different. No matter what level of the game you're playing right now, there's always going to be doubts. No matter what level of the game you're playing at, there will always be disappointments. It doesn't matter where you are on the field. What matters is, are you going to persevere and move through and not believe the limitations that have been set upon you by society, well-intentioned friends and families and family and loved ones? Or will you persevere beyond that and move beyond that because you know what is really possible for you? Or at minimum, as an experiment to see what's possible if you will persevere. All right. So with that, write down these three words: mindset, meaning mental toughness, right? Confidence, belief. That's the first word, mindset. Second word I want you to write down: skill sets. And then number three, I want you to write down the word discipline. No matter who you choose to listen to in your life, no matter who trains you, coaches you, believes in you, helps you, it is always going to come down to these three fundamentals. All success in the game of real estate, and frankly, life, will come down to what is your mindset, what are the skill sets you bring to the table, and what are the personal disciplines that you're going to do. So from a place of activity, because I would not want you to leave today without a clear destination, write this question down. What are three things I'm going to do differently or additionally? I even like the word additionally. What are three things that I'm additionally going to do to build my mindset? Your mental toughness, your confidence within yourself. What are three things you're going to do that are going to give you the advantage in 2021? Now, look, I'm going to ramble just a few things out here, but I would echo that these are some of the answers to the test. These are some of the things that if you will do them, you will win the game of your mind. How about this? What are you listening to? What are you watching? What are you listening? What are you reading? Who are you spending your time with? Are you exercising? Are you visualizing? Are you meditating? Are you being coached? Do you have mentors? Right? Are you reviewing your goals, your plan, and your schedule on a regular basis? These are the tools that help elevate and to protect a strong mindset. Look, most of the game of real estate today is all wound up in what you think about. It's the story that you tell yourself. So the issue is that your mind is telling you a story of what is possible or what is not, what you can or what you can't do, what you're willing to do or what you're not willing to do, how hard you're willing to work or how hard you're willing not to, whether you're willing to engage or whether you're willing to escape, whether you're willing to fight or whether you're willing to flee. Your mind is telling you all of these things. So what are the few things, the three things at least, that you're going to do to elevate the way in which you think? Your mind is what will take you to where you want to go. And in all cases, the vision of your dreams, your goals, and your most sacred affirmations or desires are all built from the basis of what you think about and what you see first. The Golden Gate Bridge was seen before it was created. Think about that. Every building and every home that is ever built is seen in the mind and the eye of another individual before it is built. So the mind is a powerful tool to getting there. What are you doing to elevate your mindset? What are you doing again this year, this coming year? What will you do to ensure that you will not waver from what is possible for you? What will you do to suspend that disbelief? What will you do to master the story? What will you do? Because if you can master a better story, if you can tell yourself, and you guys are all extraordinary salespeople, if you can tell yourself a better story, I promise you, you can have a better outcome. Everything will be better. Every creation was first seen in your mind before it was ever created. Do not ever forget that. That is a fact, and it is a principle of great leadership. Second thing, what skill sets are needed for you? So you've got three choices, gang. You have three choices to going out and living your life. You can either wait for things to happen. You can go buy ways and pathways, right? Like I see these Instagram guys, like they can go buy their followers. Or number three, you can go out and get business. You can go out and get things in life. You can go out and meet the ship in the harbor and bring it to your destination. So are you going to wait for business? Are you going to only buy business? Or are you going to go out and get business? That is your decision. But in the process of that decision, you're going to have a handful of skill sets you're going to have to build. So what three skills are most necessary for you? See, years ago, under no one's tutelage, no one's, not a single person, only my own discovery, that I begin to realize that if I was going to win at the game of real estate, I had to elevate the way in which I thought and the skill sets, the way I communicated at a much higher level. So what did I start doing? I started writing down the skills that were necessary in this business. Now, have other people spoken to this? Of course they have. But I got really clear because I started thinking about what was necessary. And what was necessary was I knew that I needed to have a great listing presentation. I needed to have a great buyer presentation. I know that I needed to be a great negotiator. I needed to be a great communicator. I needed to be great at lead follow-up. I needed to be extraordinary at setting appointments. I needed to be excellent at objection handling. I needed to be strong in my ability to close the sale. I needed to give extraordinary and world-class customer service. I needed to be able to reduce prices, talk about pricing, do pre-qualifying. So for you, what skill sets will you build? What will be the requirements? See, here's the thing. It's so much easier to look outside of us as to what the problems are, as to what and why we don't have what we really want in life. But if you will get serious this year, if you will put on the blinders and stop listening to the media, stop listening to the news, stop looking around outside of you that causes you tremendous anxiety and stress and excuses as to why you can or can't win at the game of real estate, I can promise you, if you will try on and say, you know what, today is the day I'm going to figure out how to truly sell. And I'm going to be proud to be a salesperson, proud of the privileges I have to work hard in this business, proud of the fact that I get to sell people and to solve problems. That's what great salespeople do. They solve problems, but they've got to be extraordinary in the way in which they communicate to do so. Otherwise, they only help a few people because they don't bring enough value, because they don't solve enough problems, because they don't know how to communicate the solutions to help them see a better path. Gang, I am here to tell you that just at a minimum, and if you haven't, you can go download on the Everest sales system, right? Create a strategy session with one of our great salespeople. You can go get the 12 skill sets that we always talk about. But look, what are the 3 skills for you? What are the 3 skills for you that you're going to take on this year? What if, just imagine, you are extraordinary at presenting, whether they're buyers or sellers, because it's the same skills to present to a buyer or seller. Somehow we get in our mind, we think it's so radically different. Just a story that we've begun to tell ourselves, and we start to believe it. And so we think there's a huge difference between how we present to a buyer or seller, and there's just not, but we somehow think that there is. And so we buy into a story, and we then only pick one side of the business. And you don't need to pick just one side, pick both sides. They're both extraordinary, and they both help bring in tremendous amounts of money. But what's the skill sets that you will build? Is it that, imagine you are extraordinary at presenting. You're extraordinary at setting appointments. And then you become extraordinary at closing. What if you just had those skills? You could set, you could present, and you could close. What would life look like? Would you do more business? Would you have more business? Would you be more disciplined? Would you be more excited to get on a phone? The answer is, of course you would. Of course you would. Of course you would. Why wouldn't you? Because you know that if you got on a phone, you know you can set an appointment. And if you set the appointment, you know you can get the deal because you're a great closer, great presenter. So look, stop thinking that it's more leads. Why is it that one agent can go call the same leads? Or I see these team leaders. This is a great example. Team leaders will take a set of leads where the one agent says, I've called them all. They're not good leads. Okay, team leader picks up the phone and says, well, I'll call them with you. And within 1 or 2 contacts, sets an appointment. Why is that? It is because they are more skilled. So again, commit this year to being an extraordinary, over the top, incredibly skilled salesperson. We are in the business of communication. We are in the business of communicating with people. And if you want to earn a tremendous amount of money, you want to help a lot of families, you want to sell a lot of real estate, you want to make a difference in the lives of other people, then pay the price to be better at communicating. Get better. And last, I told you there's 3 words, discipline. We'll wrap up with this. Look, discipline is where it's at. You know the story. If you haven't heard it, I can still remember. I'm looking over here. I can see almost the traffic lights of the light that I was sitting at when my wife, Jennifer, looked at me and said these words. Can I ask you a question? Sure. Promise me you won't be mad? Promise I won't be mad. No, really, you promise me you won't be angry? I won't be angry. She said these words as she put her hand on my hand and said, sweetheart, are you doing this business legally? And I can still remember I erupted in laughter because I had figured out the one thing that in all the years I'd already been in the business, I had created plans. I had set goals. I had this great vision of what was possible. I did all of these extraordinary things, and I would do this year upon year and never succeed. But then I met someone, a gentleman by the name of Robert Fillmore, a dear mentor and friend who coached me and said to me in simple terms, none else of it matters if you don't make the calls. And so no matter how difficult life got, no matter how tough the day got, no matter how many deals came and went, no matter how much money I was making, no matter how much money I wasn't making, it did not matter. I was going to prospect anyway. And that was the year back in 1998, 22 years ago, that I figured out that it doesn't matter what happens today. What matters is my only objective today is to make sure I set a new appointment. See, some of you enter into your day going, okay, this is so exciting. I get a closing. That's the best thing of the day. No, that's not the best thing of the day. The best thing of the day is the next appointment that you set. And I had little things I would say that it wasn't a day of work if I didn't prospect. It wasn't a day of work if I didn't set at least one appointment. How many days go by for you that an appointment's not set? How many days go by or hours go by where you don't prospect? How often are you sitting there hoping, praying that business happens when the problem isn't that you need to even hope and pray? And I think that's great that you do that, but how about you add your part to the deal? Your own action, your own effort, your own ability to be disciplined by making the calls, talking to the people, and making a difference. Gang, this is a simple business, and you can complicate it at levels that are unbelievable as I watch people do so. It is this simple. Communicate with people consistently at a high level, and you will earn lots of money. But if you choose every day to talk to 3 people, 5 people, 6 people, 8 people in a day, there is no way that you're going to earn a tremendous amount of money in this business. It does not happen. So you have got to remove yourself from the idea that if you're going to win at this game of real estate and thinking you're going to win, that you could just sit there and wait for business to happen, or that you think that you can be highly profitable if you're going to only go out and buy the business. It is not possible. It is a clear indication that people who are earning $2, $3+ million now today in this business, in our company, today, this week, a Brian Burnett will clear over $2 million. Why? Because he prospects. A Tina Hare will clear over $3 million. Why? Because she knocks doors and her team does, and they prospect. This is not a complicated process, but man, we will make it complicated. Man, we will give ourselves a story and an excuse, and people will buy in all around us and say, I get it. You don't have to prospect. It's not a big deal if you learn those skills. Oh, discipline, schmiscipline. You don't need to do that. That's no big deal. You cannot win the game without talking to people. But I will close with this. Some of us are so committed to looking good that we never allow ourselves the possibilities of failure through prospecting. Let me repeat that. We are so committed to looking good that we never allow ourselves the possibilities of failure while we prospect. The way that you win the game of prospecting, the way that you win the game of this business is through your failure. The many times as a young man, when my young boy Isaac, who's now a man child, who's 18 years old, but in his 10s and 11 years old days, he would lose the baseball game and I would clap. And I would say, great job. And he would look at me so puzzled. And he would say, what do you mean? And I'd say, great job, you lost. That's so awesome that you lost. And he would say, what? He finally blow up and get mad at me and yell at me and go, why is it so cool that I lost? I'm like, well, why do you think it is? And of course, we'd go through that, but I'm going to give you the answer quickly because we've got to wrap up. He said this, or I said this, because when you lose, you figure out how to win. When you lose, you figure out how to win. But if you never give yourself the chance to lose, to fail, to not set the appointment, to screw up the script, the dialogue, to make a fool of yourself for a moment, you will never win the game of this business. You will never win at big levels because you're so committed to looking good that you can't get out of your own way because your ego is driving you at such levels, you'll never allow the failure to occur. Guys, this business is about failing. You can make multi-millions of dollars in baseball if you simply can hit the ball one time, millions, one time out of 3. Failing 2 out of 3 times. Babe Ruth, one of the greatest hitters, 700 home runs in his lifetime, 700 plus, but struck out several thousand times. That's the point, guys. He swung the bat knowing he might just miss sometimes. A lot of times, more times than the home runs he hit. So how many times are you going to swing the bat? How many times are you willing to fail? How many times are you willing to be okay with a little bit of rejection? How many times are you gonna be okay looking dumb for a minute? How many times are you willing to screw up the script? How many times are you willing to mess up the dialogue? How many times are you willing to not figure out the close the first, second, or third time? But again, losing, failing is what helps you figure out how to win. That is the key. All right, I can talk to you guys forever. Hey, let's have a great week. Let's finish strong.